TPUSA has some serious explaining to do after $8.5 million goes into a shell company, doesn't provide any paperwork for the money, misses IRS deadline.
Money immediately starts flowing through that private LLC. We're talking millions of dollars from Turning Point and from Turning Point PAC. Right around that same exact time, Tyler Boyer, who could barely handle his HOA fees, buys a $1.9 million mansion with $600,000 down in cash.
So, Erika Kirk and the rest of her TPUSA crew were stunned when they got the notice that all TPUSA accounts were allegedly getting frozen by the IRS mid-investigation. Apparently, the IRS now has proof that money was moving in TPUSA in a way it shouldn't have. And honestly, the only people who are surprised that things turned out this way are Erika and the TPUSA staff, because whistleblowers have been sounding the alarm about TPUSA's finances looking shady for months. Now here's where it gets ugly. Remember TPUSA's All-American Super Bowl halftime show? Well, that arrangement has also gone up in flames because Kid Rock apparently never got paid, and he's not staying quiet. He's made it clear that if he doesn't get his check immediately, he's going to expose everything he knows about TPUSA's money moves. Which raises the question, if Kid Rock is speaking up now, how many others are about to follow?
Of course it was pre-recorded. They were literally watching the Super Bowl. That TPUSA halftime show was a mess. I watched it, so y'all didn't have to. And yes, Kid Rock was lip syncing.
So the IRS came knocking on TPUSA's front door, and it wasn't pretty. According to insiders, everyone at TPUSA is in panic mode right now because they apparently didn't see any of this coming. So now they have to cut costs everywhere they can, which is apparently why they still haven't paid Kid Rock for the TPUSA halftime show. To give you some context, this show was supposed to be a TPUSA flagship event, a patriotic alternative to Bad Bunny's halftime performance at the Super Bowl. Erika pushed it as an end wokeness movement, but it was tied directly to TPUSA's fundraising machine. And from the complaints about the quality of the show and Kid Rock's performance, it became clear that they didn't really put too much money or effort into making this show stand out. It was just supposed to be another avenue to get sponsors, sell merch, and charge people outrageous prices for tickets. But despite the bad performance and even worse reviews, Kid Rock and the rest of the performance crew still expected to be paid. And that's when it turned into a money problem. Because according to insiders, Kid Rock's check got withheld on orders from TPUSA leadership. Why? They literally didn't have the money. The second word got out that Kid Rock hadn't been paid, insiders started connecting dots between the freeze and missing funds. Vendors reportedly began asking the same question at the same time. If a headliner can't get paid, who else is waiting? And that's when panic set in. Okay, so this alleged IRS issue might be surprising to some, but to people who have been following TPUSA's moves since Charlie died, it's very expected. Because people like Candace Owens have been sounding the alarm for months, but nobody took them seriously. If you recall, Candace was the first to use her platform to bring attention to just how much money TPUSA has been raking in. Money that, according to her, could not really be explained. Candace even invited a private investigator who looked into TPUSA's finances to her podcast, and he revealed some pretty disturbing things. According to him, TPUSA had several missing tax documents. One of its subsidiaries did not have any tax documents for 2024, and apparently these discrepancies didn't start after Charlie's death. Charlie had actually noticed how strange money was moving in his organization, and he had ordered a full audit of the company's finances before he passed away.
I will repeat for clarity. Someone at Turning Point decided not to file 3 of the 4 of their annual financial statements 4 months before Charlie Kirk appointed a new COO, requested a new audit, and was murdered.
But it gets even darker from here, because the moment Charlie died, TPUSA began running a very intense merch and fundraising drive. Literally, the day after his death, they had flooded the TPUSA website with different t-shirts painting him as a martyr. Multiple GoFundMes were opened in TPUSA's name, and the donations from those alone were almost $10 million. One of the biggest fundraisers, pushed by Tucker Carlson's brand, raised over $5 million. And then that's not counting the tour, the royalties and book sales, and speaking appearances. Each of these things created an avenue for money to flow in and out of TPUSA. And according to investigators, it also created a very serious money trail problem that led right back to TPUSA leadership. See, it wasn't even just the merch or fundraising that got to people, it was how happy it seemed to make Erika. She tried to spin it as honoring Charlie's legacy and keeping his good work alive, but people completely stopped believing her after a leaked audio went viral on social media. The footage was from a recorded Zoom call between Erika and her TPUSA staff. And what really struck a nerve was that for the entire call, you really can't tell that this is someone who recently lost her husband. You can hear her laughing, making jokes, and bragging about how much money TPUSA made from Charlie's memorial.
I think we're at like over 200,000 for merch sales. Don't quote me on that because I think it just keeps like bumping up like crazy. But
by the way, this call is happening just days after Charlie's death, so Erika's complete lack of remorse really shocked fans. At that point, fans started wondering how much of Erika's message was about faith and how much was about squeezing as much money as possible from the TPUSA congregation. But what was even more shocking was that Erika didn't once address any of the rumors surrounding her and the alleged financial issues at TPUSA. In fact, she did the opposite by going on air and threatening people for demanding the truth.
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
And when the threats clearly didn't work, she went back to silence and had her PR team handling the fallout. However, the more Erika ignored the issues, the bigger they became. And everything came to a head when a protest broke out at a TPUSA event, forcing Erika to finally confront all the issues she thought her PR team could make disappear. As y'all know, Erika recently launched TPUSA's Make Heaven Crowded tour at Harvest Church Riverside. The entire tour was marketed as this great movement to honor Charlie's legacy and usher in the great Christian revival. However, everything went downhill the moment the first show kicked off at Harvest Church. Within minutes, a crowd of 100 had gathered outside, and they weren't there for a picnic. They held up signs protesting TPUSA and everything it stands for, including issues like ICE abducting people and separating families, and the genocide in Gaza. They also had issues with the tour itself, especially the fact that this show was being held at Harvest Church, where the lead pastor, Greg Laurie, was battling multiple lawsuits accusing him of SA.
Her message is a singular message. It is the Christian right. It is supporting MAGA. It is the ridiculous pageantry of Charlie Kirk.
So, Erika was on stage talking about faith and revival, while just outside the church doors, it was complete chaos. However, rather than trying to defuse the situation, Erika made everything worse by calling anti-ICE protesters demonic.
It was interesting because he asked her the question, do you think these protests are helping? Personally, I do not. I think it's demonic.
At that point, even the people who had been defending her before did a 180 and started dragging her for filth. But under all that backlash, people started asking one very important question. Why was Erika so hell-bent on painting everyone who demanded transparency from TPUSA as the enemy? And that's where the IRS investigation started looking a whole lot more real, because it's one thing to protect privacy, and it's another thing entirely to shut down any attempt at looking beneath the surface of your organization. Now here's where Kid Rock comes in again. According to reports, he's not about to let TPUSA get away with not paying him. It doesn't matter that the entire concert was dedicated to Charlie Kirk, or that it was marketed as a labor of love to bring back the real America. Kid Rock still expects to get his money in full, and according to insiders, he's willing to drag TPUSA and Erika Kirk through the mud if that's what gets him his check. And that's the part that's causing panic in Erika's camp right now. Because if the IRS rumors are true, then the last thing they need is a disgruntled artist cooperating with the feds and giving them any paperwork that could trace back to TPUSA. So they have to either figure out this payment, or they'll have to deal with the fallout if Kid Rock ever decides to cooperate with the feds. Now, Kid Rock isn't some random contractor TPUSA can ghost. He's loud, connected, and angry. And as you guys probably know, federal investigators don't take famous people waving paperwork around lightly. Meanwhile, Erika's camp is moving like people who know the clock is ticking, because an IRS freeze forces every vendor, every performer, every insider to start protecting themselves first. Before this, loyalty inside TPUSA looked airtight. Now insiders are reportedly screenshotting emails, saving contracts, and making sure their own names aren't attached to whatever investigators pull next. So while Erika's trying to project calm on stage, behind the scenes, this has turned into damage control mode. And the real panic is what happens when the first insider decides that protecting themselves matters more than protecting her, because the moment that person talks, there's no coming back from that.